Julius Peppers will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this weekend in Canton. What if he spent his entire career as a Carolina Panther? I'll answer that question among other listener questions in this weekly Friday Mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and of course, Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. Why? Because on Fridays, like today, I'm here answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. So all you got to do is at me or DM me. But of course, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the show. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. The weekly Friday mailbag is back once again here on the show, and we are focusing in on the Pro Football Hall of Fame this weekend up in Canton. Darren Gant of Panthers.com has done a really good job following Julius Peppers. He did it last year, and I think he's going to be doing it very often moving forward. Eventually, Steve Smith's going to be up there. You're going to have Luke Kuechly up there, maybe Cam Newton. We're not going to argue that on today's show. Certainly a outside chance, unlikely for Greg Olsen, but being in the media, being seen often, maybe that helps his chances. I think there's going to be a lot of Panthers in the coming years. They're going to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Certainly, with all certainty, it will be Luke Kuechly and then Steve Smith Sr. at some point in time, and Darren Gant will be up there. Whoever will be up there covering all of that. So exciting time for Julius, for the organization, and really, he's the first, I would say, and I don't want to take anything away from Sam Mills. Sam Mills spent other parts of his career around, and he obviously is an integral part of this franchise. But like, when you think about somebody who was drafted by Carolina, finished his career in Carolina, like Julius Peppers will be kind of the first Panther to truly make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And again, not trying to say anything bad about Sam Mills. I hope that makes sense. A guy who was drafted by the Panthers, spent his first 8 years. Yes, he did leave, then came back. Feels like the first one. Now, Steve Smith, now he did play the last couple of years of his career in Baltimore. He'll certainly be that case. And then Luke Kuechly only spent his 9 years in the NFL, all here in Carolina. But great to see Julius getting that honor. Jake got a question about Julius Peppers going into the Hall of Fame, asking something I think a lot of people have asked. Should the Panthers have paid Julius Peppers to stay a Panther his entire career? Watch highlights recently was beside myself. We always do this where we try to remember what happened and why the player left. And it's been a long time since there was that split between the Panthers and Julius Peppers. I remember driving to high school at Providence High here in Charlotte when it was happening, and it was Mac and Chris McClain and then Jim Selania on the Mac Attack in the morning and on WFNZ. And they were talking to Julius and explaining his decision to leave. And of course, people were upset to see a homegrown type of talent from Wilson, North Carolina, played at Carolina, to leave after being an excellent player and go on to big city in Chicago. And I went back and read an article that Darren Gant put out last year when he was inducted, he being Julius Peppers, into the Panthers Hall of Honor. And this was a little excerpt from that, saying, after spending the first 8 seasons of his NFL career in Charlotte, Peppers, a Wilson, North Carolina native, which is where my mom's from, by the way, and University of North Carolina product, signed away to the Chicago Bears on a 6-year, $91.5 million deal. He explained that his departure, which wasn't exactly an amicable split when it occurred, was really about experiencing something new. There was a quote, there was a lot of things going on at the time, he added, but yeah, the personal growth was one of the things that was like a driving force in that decision. You know, I loved it here. I love the Carolinas, but there was a part of me that just wanted to go see something different. I think that if I had gone to high school here and gone to college in, I don't know, Miami or New York or wherever, anywhere, any other city, right, then got drafted by the Panthers, I probably would have had a different feeling. But the thing from being born and raised, going to school here, coming to the Panthers, it was lovely. It was a perfect scenario, but I think I got a little bit fatigued with the whole thing. It was overwhelming at times, whatever you want to call it. The celebrity, it was a little bit much at the time. And I found that to be interesting, man, because you would think like hometown guy, he's going to be happy here. Everyone loves him. And at the end of that, he talks about he just wanted to get away. Want to get away from the celebrity, being that person who had spent his entire life in North Carolina. Like, I can understand that. Growing up here in Charlotte, before like the city really has blown up to what it was, I never wanted to live here. I wanted to get the hell out of Charlotte and go like live in New York, live anywhere else. And like I came back home. I went and spent time in Connecticut. I spent time in Nashville, and it made me more appreciative of home. And I think with Julius spending time in Chicago and in Green Bay probably made him feel more appreciative of home. Now he does live in Miami now, so he doesn't live in the Carolinas or in North Carolina anymore anyways. But I do think when you get away, you do have more of a love for where you came from. And I always encourage anybody, like when college students, for whatever reason, ask me my advice, I tell them, like, go see the world, get out. Don't just stay in your comfort zone, in your bubble. He got outside of his comfort zone. Also got a ton of money to go play for the Bears and then played for the Packers, one of the best organizations in football, and he came back. So I'm not going to sit here years later and say that the Panthers made a mistake. Peppers did what he felt like was right for him. And whether he would have stayed here, and of course he left, he was going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer because he's one of the most outstanding defensive end talents we have ever seen in the history of this game. I'm just happy that he was here, that we got him for 10 years, and that he had success elsewhere. And just for me personally, like I remember watching that Florida State game where Carolina beat the brakes off of that FSU team that day, which came out of nowhere, and just how great Peppers was. So growing up as a North Carolina fan, watching him when I was really young, when he was in college, and then seeing him here as a Panther and then him come back, now go to the whole Pro Football Hall of Fame. It really is cool to see, especially for a guy from Eastern North Carolina, from my mom's hometown. So, of course, I've been to Wilson plenty of times. So it's really cool to see a kid come out of there and then go get inducted to Canton. So best of luck for him. I mean, not best wishes, best of luck, but like congratulations to him, and excited to see what he does moving forward. As it's really cool that that's happened for him in his career in the NFL and playing football. Now, Jake has a serious mailbag question. He says, asking, did Carolina figure out that paying / extending Derrick Brown is the smart play? Who is next to get paid / extended for Carolina? Yeah, I think it's a smart play, because if they didn't do that, we would have had to wait until the middle of last month in July to figure out whether he was going to get an extension then. And if that did not happen, we're doing the same thing that we did last year with Brian Burns, trying to figure out, is Brian Burns going to be a Panther? Are they going to pay him, or are they going to move on? And we know that eventually they moved on, as that just ended up having irreconcilable differences where they could not get on the same page, and the Panthers didn't want to pay $30 million. And now we're wondering, is the edge rusher group good enough this year? No, it's not. Even with Burns, probably was going to have some issues either way with that. It was a smart play. Brown's a really good player. Plays at the line of scrimmage, which this is a line of scrimmage game. You can focus on the quarterback, focus on receivers, you can focus on corners and all of that. If you can't block, can't get off blocks, can't get after the passer, it doesn't really matter. Derrick Brown is a hell of a player, and yes, it was a smart play. As far as who's next in line to get paid / extended, there's a long list of pending free agents coming up here in the offseason, which will make the offseason very interesting, no matter how things play out this season here in Carolina. Deontay Johnson, he is going to be a free agent. J.C. Horn is not a free agent, but he just had his 5th-year option exercise. And you'd think if he stays healthy, plays well this year, it would behoove the Panthers to get that deal done prior to him playing on a 5th-year option. I think that also would be something that would happen. Austin Corbett, he'll be a free agent. There are some void years there in his contract, by the way. Tommy Tremble will be a free agent. Chuba Hubbard will be a free agent. Xavier Woods will be a free agent. And Eddie Pinheiro will be a free agent. A list of guys. I would think that JC would be next in line to get paid. I know you're going to think to yourself, well, he's already under contract for next season anyways with the 5th-year option. As being a first-round pick, being someone that you want to have as cornerstone there in your secondary, if he plays well, stays healthy, that's the guy you got to take care of first and foremost. At least with Deontay Johnson, you still have Thielen under contract for another season. You got Mingo, who's looking good so far, but we'll see when the games actually happen. And Xavier Legette, who the Panthers invested a first-round pick. There are options and maybe guys that you drafted who step up and can help if he does decide to leave. And he's got to do what's best for him. It's going to be his second time getting paid, and this would potentially be a bigger deal than what he signed before, especially if he stays here in Carolina. He would be right up there with JC as far as the next two. Corbett, I don't know how he's going to play at center. I don't know what their long-term plan is at center, as they have not drafted anyone since Ryan Khalil, something we talked about throughout the offseason when evaluating the offensive line. Cade Mays is a backup and could make sense. This is also Cade Mays' third year, so he's going to be going into his last year's rookie deal next year, and is that going to be the guy you want to be your starting center? Tommy Tremble, we'll see how that works out. Chuba Hubbard, you drafted a running back, don't really see much sense in paying him. Xavier Woods has been one of the most underrated players. He was really good last year. Do you want to keep him around? And there's all three of the secondary members or the safety guys, players, all three of the players at safety, Xavier Woods, Nick Scott, and Jordan Fuller, are pending free agents after the season. And Eddie Pinheiro, we'll see how all that plays out. So that's a list of guys that would be next in line to get paid / extended here in Carolina. All right, let's take a quick pause and come back and answer the rest of your weekly Friday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because of eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. For all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Back to more of your questions here on the weekly Friday mailbag on Locked On Panthers. Now over to Will, who has a potential concern about the Panthers head coach, Dave Canales, who will also be the Panthers play caller this season. Will saying to me, not sure if you were able to catch the interview of a Bucs player comparing Dave Canales to Liam Coen, who is now the Bucs OC, but he said that Canales' scheme was a little predictable based off the formation that the offense was in. Is this a cause for concern or a nothing burger? So I had to go back and find this because I had not, when Will brought this up to me, I had not seen this quote out there. I had not read the article, but I did find the article coming from the Tampa Bay Times, and it's from SirVocea Dennis, who is a second-year linebacker out of University of Pittsburgh playing down there in Tampa. Thought he was a pretty good player at Pitt, and we'll see what he looks like as he's, I think, stepping into a starting role there in Tampa. He had this to say, quote, I love Dave, and now he's at the Carolina Panthers, but I think of his offense, you can telegraph a lot. You can see a lot of things, you know, football is all concepts. Everyone runs the same thing, but with Liam Coen, everything is like it's one play out of 15, 20 different looks. He has a lot of moving parts. He has a lot of eye candy, things that get you out of your gaps and your zones and everything there. So Liam's defense is definitely hard to scheme, but it's fun to watch. Okay, so he believes that Liam Coen gives him more eye candy and therefore makes it harder to be disciplined, to stay in your gaps and in your zones. And at Dave Canales, how they line up, the concepts, you can telegraph. Okay. I really can't answer this to whether it's a nothing burger or whether it's a cause for concern right now, because I truly do not know. And I do think it's important to tell people oftentimes when you don't know, to be honest. And honestly, I don't know whether that's a cause for concern or not. I haven't sat here and grinded the tape and watched Dave Canales' offense a ton from last season. I watched 2 games the Panthers played against the Bucs, and outside of that, I watched them in the playoffs, and outside of that, didn't really watch and haven't really spent a lot of time going back and looking at it because I'm going to get plenty of time to see it. I'm seeing with my own eyes when I'm there at training camp. I'm going to see with my own eyes starting next Thursday, also when they have their preseason game, and then once the season begins. Now, if we get to a point in time where the offense is struggling and it's because they're predictable, then maybe it wasn't a nothing burger. But right now, it's hard for me to say that it is something to be concerned about. It's something certainly to bookmark and to come back later and maybe point to, all right, maybe we should have seen this coming. One of the Bucs players who allegedly loves Dave Canales. You can love Dave Canales and also come out and say that his scheme is predictable, and you can telegraph a lot of it. I just find that funny. Like, why come out and even say that at all? We'll see, man. I hope not. I know it was a couple years ago. I want to say that, who was it? It was Dan Orlovsky was talking about the Panthers were predictable. And every time they were like in a shotgun that you knew exactly like what they were going to do. And then Matt Rule came out and said, like, that's not the case at all. And I know how y'all feel about Matt Rule. I did talk to somebody else, though, and they talk about every offense has its tendencies. And this kind of goes to what SirVocea Dennis is saying, that everyone pretty much runs the same thing. It's just giving it different looks to be able to disguise what you're doing. And there is that eye candy and trying to get the defense to be out of position. So I totally understand where you're coming from, where he's coming from there. But that person I talked to is like, every offense has tendencies. This really isn't like that much to do about anything. Like, you can guess that's what's happening. But yeah, I don't think this is something to be super concerned about right now. We'll watch and see if that's the case. I think there's other things offensively that I'd be a little bit more concerned about. But I also think about this too. Like, Dave Canales has been a play caller one time in the NFL. He's been a play caller for one season, and now he's got a head coaching job and he's back in the play calling role. Allow the man an opportunity to, one, coach a game that matters, and also to grow. My hope is that David Tepper is going to allow that. We will see. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to personally allow him the opportunity to grow into the job and to continue to grow as a play caller before really passing any judgment and getting concerned about the words said about a linebacker from Tampa. That's just my thoughts. Ethan, we kind of talked about this last week, but Ethan asking another question about Bryce Young. He said, I am curious, what do you think a realistic season for Bryce in year 2 will look like? It seems like the offense will be very run heavy, but would you still expect Bryce to have better numbers to show significant improvement? These are his numbers last year. He had the league worst passer rating of 73.7. He had a QBR of 33.4. That was 30th in the league, only ahead of Will Levis and Zach Wilson. He was last in net yards per pass attempt at 4.07. He was last in passing success rate, second worst in touchdown percentage, only ahead of Kenny Pickett. I expect those numbers to be a lot better than that. I am not expecting Bryce Young to have the league worst passer rate. I'm not expecting him to have one of the lowest QBRs. I'm not expecting him to have one of the lowest net yards per pass attempt, or to have the worst passing success rate, or the second worst touchdown percentage. I don't expect any of that to happen. I do wonder how much, and I asked Mike K this on yesterday's episode, how much are they going to put on Bryce Young? Early on, Mike believes, and I think the same thing, they're going to lean on the run game. And that's something, too, that Dave has brought up. Like, they want to run the football. That is apparent. They have built this team to do that, because when the season gets later, the teams that win up front, win in the trenches, those are the teams that go far, because it's a line of scrimmage game. Understand, though, you got to have the quarterbacks to make the right plays. I look at San Francisco, not last year, but I go back to the Garoppolo year where they went to the Super Bowl and lost Kansas City. I still believe the Niners were a better football team, better in the trenches, and they were kicking Kansas City's ass. But when it came down to the fourth quarter, their quarterback had to make plays, and he did not do it. The other guy, Mahomes, made the plays, even though he was not playing on a better team that day. His team happened to have the better player and the guy who could make it happen when it mattered most. And really, when I look at it, what they need Bryce to do is hand the ball off, make the right decisions for the first 3 quarters. But when they give him the football in the fourth quarter, and this is the case with every single team in the league, you got to go get it, man. When it's time for you to go throw the football, move this team down the field and cook, you got to be able to do it. So that's really, when you look at kind of the next steps, that's what you want to see. You want to see early on, running play action, him more under center, handing the ball off, hitting Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, the rest of his receivers, being efficient. But really, moving forward, when they start to open things up, ask a little bit more of him, he's got to be able to make those throws. He's got to be able to make those plays late in the game and to show that he's more than just someone who can manage it. You want him to be able to manage the game, and that's what every quarterback has to do. You got to play your part. You got to take care of the football. You got to get the right guys in formation, all that. But then you got to be able to deliver the football on time, accurate, and with precision. So that's my hope that that's what he can do later on. So I do expect the numbers to be better. I can't sit here and say like what the realistic like passing yardage, passing touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage, success rate, and all that will be. I just expect that he's going to look a lot more competent. He's going to be put in a position to actually have success, but it's going to come down to him eventually showing you that he can do more than just the bare minimum that's going to be asked of him, I think, early on in the season here in Carolina. So I'm excited to see what's going to look like. All right, let's take one more pause. I'll come back and I'll answer the rest of your weekly Friday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But with the playoffs over, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But maybe they are sportsing like I want them to, as there was a football game last night. You might have checked it out. The Hall of Fame game, Bears versus whoever they played. Wasn't watching. You got that going on. Baseball is happening. More preseason next week. The Olympics. So whether that's happening, FanDuel always lets me keep sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. One final question here on this weekly Friday mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers comes from Owen, and I'm not so sure I'm the right guy to answer this question, but I will try to answer this question. Owen says to me, November 3rd, this will be the day the Panthers play the Saints the second time. How good does the season have to be record-wise to watch the game at my wedding? Okay, I have never been married. I have never been engaged to be married. My taxes, I file single, but I've been in a long-term relationship. So maybe that will happen at some point here in the near future. We will see. But as far as whether you should watch the game on your wedding day, number one, I feel like that's got to be up to the bride. No, you got to talk to your better half there, Owen, and ask her, hey, babe, can we sneak in some time to watch the game? Or is that not good? I think you need to consult her. But as far as the record goes, let's go ahead and I'll indulge you here. Let's go ahead and play the schedule game. That will be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That will be their 9th game of the season. So through 8 games, if the Panthers are 8-0, I think that's a pretty good argument, right? 7-1, pretty good argument. 6-2. I feel like if it's one of those 8-0, 7-1, less so 6-2, I feel you got to maybe try to find a way, but also can you just wait? Like do this. Just tape the game. Very easy to do nowadays. Have no one say anything to you and find a way to carve out the next day 2 hours, because you can skip through it, to watch the game. Maybe you guys sit there and you watch the game the next morning and maybe do that. That's I don't know what to tell you. I'm looking at it, play the schedule game, like Saints week 1. Oh man, I mean, I don't know. It's a toss-up right now. Like, I feel like they'll be 1-1 at least after the first 2 weeks. Justin Herbert's injured right now. We'll see how serious that's going to be. The Raiders on the road, I mean, they could be like 2-1. Bengals, that's definitely going to be a loss. Bears, not feeling great about that. Falcons, I don't know, 3, 4. I could see 4-4. I could see maybe 5-3. I could, because I feel like early on in the season, you kind of got to get them right, because you get down like Philly, that's gonna be tough. Dallas gonna be tough. I mean, I don't think Tampa's gonna be that bad. Yeah, I think they could. I can see them beating the Saints. I can see them beating the Chargers. I can see them beating the Raiders. I do not see them beating the Bengals under any circumstance. I don't see them beating the Bears. I can see them beating the Falcons. I can see them beating the Commanders. I can see them beating the Broncos. So there's a lot of games they could win up front, potentially. But they're not beating Kansas City, beating Philly. They're probably not going to beat the Cowboys either. Tampa's probably going to take care of them at least once. So I don't know if they're 8-0, maybe that's the way to do it. But you're gonna have to talk to her, man. I do love this though. That is one concern. Is like, hey, I want to watch the game. Maybe you have talked to her. I want to watch the game, but what's the record got to be? 8-0, 8-0, 7-1. That's got to be the record. If they're 8-0, you're gonna. I think that's possible that you'd be like, okay, fine, the reception. I don't know what time your wedding's at on that Sunday. I actually got invited to a wedding on a Sunday. The Sunday before that, it's in Charleston, a beautiful wedding. Like, I want to go to it, but the Panthers are playing the Broncos, and it's like a 4:00 ceremony. Right now, I'm not going. Maybe I'll decide I will go. You guys let me know. Do I have the freedom? Do I have your blessing to miss the Broncos game to go to a wedding and then do a podcast later? Do I have your blessing to do that? So if I do, I'll do it. But if I don't, I won't do it, or maybe I still will because like I'm gonna do what I want to do. But all right, good luck, Liam. Sorry, Owen. Good luck, Owen. I don't know what to tell you, man. All right, that's gonna wrap up this edition of the Weekly Friday Mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Again, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe and follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or wherever you listen, all that. I'm still just like my mind. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to you on Monday.